Okay, now that the paper effects is good and dry and hard, we can go ahead and paint. But before I did this, before I painted the flowers blue, I actually went around and erased any graphite lines that were still showing. There's another product you can get that works even better than an eraser, especially when you have these little ridges to deal with, is an odorless solvent or paint thinner, terps, odorless terps, any of those on a paper towel will definitely rub off all the graphite marks. And you don't have to worry, it's not going to take off the paint. Okay, so I base coated this with the blue. Now it's totally dry, and then what I'm going to do is pick up some retarder on my brush, which I have put a little bit in a little dish there instead of using it straight out of the bottle. And then what I'm going to do is brush it on a couple of petals at a time. You have about 20 minutes open time, but after that the paint doesn't move as easily, so we don't want to do too much at one time. It's better to take the time to reapply the retarder to petals as you need it. Okay, so the trick with retarder is not to have too much or too little. What you want is a nice even coverage. It should look like semi-gloss, like a semi-gloss finish, and it shouldn't have any puddles anywhere. And there shouldn't be any dry patches or areas that don't look a little bit shiny. You'll need to go over it a couple of times to make sure that it's on there nice and evenly. Definitely worth the trouble to get it on there right in the first place, because then the shading and highlighting that we're going to do is so much easier. Okay, so I've got it worked in, all nicely blended. There's no dry patches and there are no puddles. So the retarder's still in the brush. I'm going to leave it there, and then I'm going to pick up a little bit of the purple. And I know that the shading is going to be strongest in the center of the flower, so I want to start there. You don't want to start where it's starting to get light and come down into the dark. You want to go from the dark back out from the darkest area and blend it up through the petal. Then you take your mop and see those brush marks? Well, you can just softly blend those out. Not a problem. Just a very light touch. If you press too hard, you're going to take too much of that purple right off the flower, and that isn't going to do. So there we've got one done. Then we go back and we'll work on the other. So I'm going to pull a little bit out there. There's a little bit of a dip there in the petal, so we can shade that. Pick up a bit more, and we can do this last one. Same way, from the center out. There we go. And then again, mop. There, wow, it's starting to come along, isn't it? Okay, then what I want you to do is wash your brush to get rid of the purple. Reload retarder and then wipe off the excess. And then what I'm going to do is take some of my blue and add white to it to create a highlight color. There we go. And then just as we started with the dark in the center and worked out, we're going to start with the light at the other end and work back down in. Just like that, to create those neat little highlights. And again, mop it. I'm going to leave some of those streaks in there. I like that it makes it look like it's got some variation in the petal. And again, a little bit here. And blend. I can actually move the color. If I mop this way, I can pull it that way. And if I mop this way, I take it that way. So you can adjust the position of the light value quite easily with the mop too. Take a little of this right around, and then just again mop. There we go. I'm going to take some more white in my brush now, and go back and add just a bit more up here for extra little bit of bright, because that petal I think is going to be the brightest, or one of the brightest. There we go, maybe a bit more on this one. White seems to disappear. You put it on and 5 minutes later it's like, oh, where'd that go? So it doesn't hurt to redo it. Now my mop is starting to grab when I'm doing this, so I can tell that the retarder is getting too dry, or I've mopped most of it off, so I better not do too much more. Just going to pull a little of that down there to separate those two petals. And you know what? Maybe a little bit through here too. See how easy that is with retarder? You can put it on and then just mop it out. I think that's a bit too much sheet. There we go. Okay, so again, wash your brush out and blot it. Now, you see my mop is getting pretty dirty, so where I've been blotting my brush, the paper towel is damp, and I can take the mop and give it a good scrub out on that damp area, not soggy, because I want the brush clean, but I don't want to get it wet, because if it's wet, it's not going to work well at all. So then I just go to a clean area, dry area, and do it a bit more, and now it's dry. I'm ready to go. Okay, so back to the retarder, and I'm going to brush it on these other petals, the two other ones on this flower, like that. And again, work it in. Hold the piece in the light so that you can see where there's shine and where there isn't. And again, make sure there's no puddles. It doesn't matter if I go over onto the background. In fact, if you have too much retarder in an area, you just spread it out and not worry about the background. It doesn't affect the finish at all. Okay, so I've got the retarder on, and I'm going back into my purple now to shade. And again, we're back in the center, working out from that center. Pull it up like that, and again, lightly mop. If I just excuse me, if I just tap like this, I can lift the color if it tends to collect around some of that paper effects, the ridges, so I can avoid having any dark spots. Here we go. I'm going to shade under this petal, and in behind this one it's got a little flip, which is very pretty, so we can just accentuate that. And then just along the bottom edge of that flip, it'll roll up. So I'm just going to put a little bit of dark across the bottom, like that. And again, rub it out. I'm thinking I'm going to cheat a bit. Go back here. This looks a little light. So there we go. Then again, we have to wash that dark out of the brush. Blot. Pick up a bit more retarder. Blot. A little bit of white plus the blue. Don't go too light this time. Remember, we can always come back and add a bit more white. And then again, I'm just going to go in here and create my highlight. Light touch. Light, light, light. Ooh, it's nice when I pull it into the purple, isn't it? Okay, and then mop that. Just softly. There we go. And then, remember I said this petal was flipped up here, so we're going to create that little light area there. I'm going to use my finger here. It's a bit small for the mop. And maybe create a little bit of a light there. Mop it out. Just a little. There we go. And then now see, that light seems to have disappeared again. So I'll pick up a bit more white. And let's go in there and just beef that up a bit. There we go. Remember, when I tap, I'm lifting color. When I do this, I'm actually moving the color a little bit. Whoa, looking good. Okay, next flower. Wash the brush, blot the excess water, pick up retarder, and then start. And let's cover those petals with the retarder. Oh, that was a bit much, so I'm going to pull it out to the background a bit. Now be careful here, because if I touch this petal that I've just done, I'll just lift the color right off and make a big mess, so don't want to go there. So a little more retarder. Let's get it on the last couple of petals. I'm doing them all because I can work quite quickly. So you judge. If you're having difficulty with it, then just do one petal at a time. But if you're confident and it's going well, go ahead. Put retarder everywhere. Okay, so now I pick up some purple. I'm just going to do a little shading because this petal is under and behind the other one. Now I have to be really careful here too, not to mop this into that nice light petal. So just a little. Now this petal is coming out like this. So actually the back edge is where it's rolling. So we want to put a little bit of dark along that back edge. And again, I'm just going to use my finger there. There we go. Rinse out the purple. Pick up a bit more retarder. And back to the blue plus the white for our highlight. Now we're going to start again at the tips. Pull it down. Tiny bit over here. A little bit there. A little bit more. There we go on this one. And this is the edge. It's lightest. So we'll just sneak a little bit in there. Better use my finger here too. That's better. Finish it off with a mop. Don't want any fingerprints on it. And then go ahead and mop that. And you can decide if you'd like a little bit more white anywhere. I think I do. A little bit more right in here. Well, that's a bit much. Oh well. It's okay, it'll be nice and bright. Again, mop it. And since I got a little more than I should have on there, I can just keep mopping, and the more I mop, the more I take the white off. Just have to remember not to mop it too much, or it ends up just all mushy. A little bit more up here. And put a few vein lines through. There we go. How pretty is that? And that's it. It's really easy if you use retarder and just the right amount to get some extra highlights happening and some darks. It really makes that flower come alive. You see, I'm just ever so lightly dragging this brush over that surface. Just a little, just with what was on the brush. Don't have to add more paint. It's dangerous if you do. Just a little bit. Beef it up. There we go. I think we're pretty good. And maybe just a little more blending here. There we go. Now the next step is to dry this thoroughly.